Okay, so this is a story about your son, Joshua.
It is.
All right, let's go from the beginning.
Okay, from the beginning, I lived in Manhattan, and I feel like I was somewhat equipped from the beginning to actually have this happen to us, crazy enough as it is retrospectively. I was in musical theater, then I became a teacher, and I then became a guidance counselor, and I chose to work with the autistic population. So when I got married several years later, and then I had my son, after he had the shot, and literally within, I'd say, like 6 hours, got a rash on his chest. Then he started shaking his head like this, and then he started hand flapping, literally within hours. He started staring at lights. He stopped looking at me, and this child had so much affect before the shot that, you know, I don't have pictures. I can show you pictures. I called the doctor. The doctor said, oh, he had a bad reaction. Okay, give him Tylenol. Apparently there's some compound in Tylenol that can make it worse, like make your body more susceptible. That's what I was told later. So that didn't help. And he continued to, he had a fever, he had the rash, he was stimming, which was nothing like the child that I knew before, who was so happy and had such eye contact and affect. And then it was devastating, to say the least. But what I did was I just decided to do everything that I could do to make him better. And I read Jenny McCarthy's book, and I felt like she had followed me around with like a notepad and took notes on my life, except for, thank God, the seizures, because we, thank God, did not have that. But Joshua was a shadow of himself. Again, staring at lights, fans, lining cars up, stopped talking, and he didn't talk again until he was 6.5 or 7 years old, approximately. And I never knew if he would talk, and that was the scariest part. He had diarrhea like 6-7 times a day, until finally we learned about a probiotic called ProThera from Vital 10, and that has stopped the diarrhea. And I've done experiments now that he's almost 11. I will take him off of it, and within hours he'll have loose stools. I had every test done. I scooped poop out of a diaper, and they tested it. They said that he had no healthy flora whatsoever in his stool, in his stomach. Like, it was completely burnt out. And I don't know, I'm not a medical person, but what I do know is I took my kid in for a wellness visit, and he came out autistic within several hours.
Do you know what vaccines he had?
Yeah, the MMR.
It's just the MMR, definitely.
100%.
Right, let's have a look at some of these pictures.
Yeah.
Explain, talk us through
So
this.
this is Joshy, and I can tell you, he was forlorn. He was sick. His stomach hurt him all the time. He was not a happy camper back then. Now this is, he's staring at lights, and he was probably hand flapping and banging his head back, because he used to do that a lot.
Throwing his head back, just literally.
Because he was so uncomfortable. This is him in New York playground too, and he's got his head back again. And he'd do the head rocking as well. But he did have a very strong interest in lights. And in fact, he had a play date with another autistic kid, and they would go from room to room, and the one kid wanted the lights on and Joshy wanted them off. So you can imagine what kind of play date that was. And this is him. This is a hard, sad one. I don't even like looking at it, because those were the days when that was the day. Those were the types of days I don't like to think about. I have 1,000 pictures in my house. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating 100, but 100 pictures of him happy and doing well.
These are pictures.
These are the happy pictures.
All right, let's look at some happy pictures.
Those were from his AI program. He's been in an autism program since he was 2.5, with only 5 other kids. So he's had like everything that you can do. I've done literally everything except for the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and it was offered to me for free, and it's like $5,000 a month. And I said no thanks, because I think it can collapse your lungs, and like we have enough problems with autism, thanks. But it was really nice of the guy who offered it. So he has had PT, OT, speech, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free,
Diet really helps.
Oh yeah, I hope it. I mean, I don't know what helped. This is Josh being told to smile. He doesn't understand how to make certain faces. You can catch him smiling naturally, but if you ask him to smile, then this is what you might get.
A lot of our children do that. I mean, I'm with you. I get it from Billy the whole time.
And that's his most recent.
That's beautiful. He's
Thank
a
you.
beautiful
He's gorgeous.
boy. He really is.
I mean, I know. Thank you. I mean, yeah, he is. Yeah, I'm absolutely. I know people say, would you? I mean, obviously, I didn't want what happened to happen, but would I press a button and change a child? Never. He is so special. I mean, that sounds wrong, but I can say that. But he is. He's special, and in a really profound way. He is so honest, and he takes everything that a person says literally, like everything. So you really have to be careful what you say around Joshua, because he believes it. Like, I mean, he's innocent. It's.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good. I know I said I wasn't going to cry in this because I don't look backwards. My whole thing is about fixing it. And that's why I wrote my book. And
all right, let's have a look at your book.
yeah, he's doing so great. It's called The 8-Word Autism. Ironically, because I wrote this several years ago, I worked with autistic kids in New York City. I was a play therapist. And when he became autistic, I couldn't even say autism. So I wrote this book. I felt like I was called spiritually to write it. I fought with God like for 3 years writing it, but it turns out that all the tears through this book, and it ends up being a really like hopeful, promising book that makes you, gives you hope. And Josh is better. I hope you can have it. I'll leave it here for you. So he's doing better, but it's been a horrible road. I mean, people don't understand. And what gets me the most is, let's say you meet one of these people, these refugees who've been through hell out wherever in the world, and you tell them, oh, I'm sorry, no, you're lying, that didn't happen. What? Oh, really? My parents didn't just get murdered in the Holocaust. The Holocaust happened. Absolutely, it happened. And I don't want to hear from people. And I had really hard trouble right after Joshua was, right after the incident. I would walk around New York City. I lived in Manhattan, 15 years in Manhattan. I had to leave because he couldn't live there anymore with all the sensory overload. The sirens would set him off. Any noises would set him off. Too many people and their energy, because he's sensitive energetically. Actually, he's very sensitive to people, too. He's got really good discernment about people, to say the truth about it. But I couldn't stay in New York. I would walk up, literally couldn't help it, compulsive, and I'm not OCD. But I would see a mother with a baby that was about the same age as when Josh was vaccinated, and I would have to go up to the woman. I must have stopped like 300 women, and honestly, like, I think 40% of the time they were like, wow, I was just praying about that and you were like a messenger. I'm like, thank you, thank God. Okay, so that was good. But the other 60% were like screaming at me. It was crazy. But I don't regret it, but I couldn't live in New York anymore, not with someone on the spectrum. It's too much. It's too much for me, and I'm not autistic. I was a musical theater person, and one thing that helped him a lot, which I tried to tell people to do, was to do play therapy with them. If Josh, when he was going like this and pulling his diaper off and playing with his poop and rubbing it on the wall, because I wasn't there fast enough because maybe I had to go to the bathroom, he was like in this really stunted place for a long time. He'd tap a wall, and like the Sunrise program, I tap the wall and I go, oh, you're tapping the wall. And I do with as much animation and affect as possible. And then Josh would look at me for 1 second. That was one circle of communication. Mm-hmm. The child has now got thousands of circles of communication, but do you know how long that took? Yeah. And they say, oh, it can't be from, are you kidding me? Okay, excuse me. Have you ever seen someone try lotion on and it gives them a rash? That's just a lotion on the skin. So I say to people, really think about it. If someone gets stung by a bee, and this is one of my favorites, and it kind of shuts people down who want to fight with me, but if someone gets stung by a bee, one person could have a little lump in pain, another person could have a bad reaction, vomit or whatever, another person dies. That's a tiny, tiny bit of a bee sting. What do you think a shot with chemicals in it can do to a person? We don't know. And that is the scary part. And I can tell you this, and I swear by it. If someone tells me that my child, or my daughter as well, who's typically functioning child, if they say you have to vaccinate your kid, and I don't care. I would move anywhere. Like, I would just get out of this country, literally, because my children will never be vaccinated, never. And I'm one of the few people who actually have a doctor's note. I said to the doctor, and he's not like anti-vaccine. He gives vaccines out left and right. He has signs up. I said, those signs are reprehensible. How can you put those up when you know my son is a vaccine injury child? He's a victim. How do you put that up? I fight with him for years, but he had a heart, so I stayed with him, and he wouldn't make me do stuff I didn't want to do, so I stayed with him. And I said, if you're a good person like I believe you are, you're going to write me a letter. And if I get that letter, then I'll know you're a good doctor and a good person, and I'll keep coming to you. And he didn't want to write the letter. He wouldn't answer me. I said, please think about it. I said, let me ask you this, and just this one question. Should Joshua ever be vaccinated again? And he couldn't say yes. He couldn't say yes. And I know he's not a liar. And I got the letter 3 days later in the mail. He didn't call me. We don't talk about it.
What did the letter say?
It said that Joshua should never be vaccinated again. He has allergic response to vaccination. Okay, I'll take it. But I still had to have his dad go to the CDC or whatever, the health department, and sit through hell, and listen. Although the nurse there has a grandson who's got a problem, and she then said, oh, I know, and here's your paper. It's ridiculous. Really? What are they trying to get over here? And who's getting all the cash? That's all I want to know. And then the people that say, oh, it's bad parenting. Okay, I challenge you and invite you. Not to my son now, because he's like almost 11 and he's doing great. But I challenge you and I invite you. And I'm sure any parent with a kid who's about 3 would say, come on in. You take over for 4 hours. Bon chance, good luck. I would love to hear what they think about parenting after that. Because my son, wow, what we haven't been through. The sensory issues alone, the sensory sensitiveness is something that's interesting. For example, one day Joshua might feel a feather touch him, and it's painful. The next day he could put his hand on a light bulb and would feel nothing. What do you do with that? I mean, I bought him a bag of 50 pounds of rice. He put his hands in to start desensitizing because he had little dinosaurs I'd hid in there from the dollar store, and he would pull them out. It took a long time, but there's so many sensory issues. I remember one day he said, and he's finally talking at age almost 7, he said privacy, because he still has dyspraxia. The connections in the brain are still not there fully, and he can't speak clearly, but he's speaking at age 10, finally speaking. It started at 7-ish, but he said privacy, and I thought, okay, he wants privacy. That's great. He even knows what that word means. So I had little light bright set up in the pantry, which is a large pantry, and the lights go out when you shut it. So he'd play with light bright in there. It was like a sensory happy room for him at home. And then it got really quiet for like 5-10 minutes, and I'm like, oh wow, that's like, I don't know. He's not talking. He's not saying anything. So I knocked on the door. He goes, go away. And of course I opened the door, and there's Oreos that had like orange, because it was Halloween, so he got the orange Oreos. And he had a sensory like bath in the Oreos, and that stuff does not come out. It's like oily, and he just had it on his face, and he had it on the walls. He had it everywhere you could think, and he was happy, And then
these people love you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love you too. I love you, and I want you to know, truly know. I know every case is different. I know it's a spectrum disorder, but I want you to know that you gotta keep the faith 150%. You have to keep it. Hi. Oh, I love you too. I'm telling you, you just got to keep the faith. Keep it, because if you lose faith, you're not helping your kid, and it doesn't. Oh, that's so sweet. I love your hearts. Oh, you're not alone. I'm not alone. We're not alone. And it's been very lonely, but we're not alone.